weekend when people came to that big school, they see that guy flying in the air, so they all take membership. I was to show up the class. Then I would start to fight traditional karate.
For decades, two legends stood on opposite ends of the action movie spectrum. One, a disciplined warrior forged in real competition, the other, a shadowy figure wrapped in myth and mystique. But now, the silence has been shattered. Jean-Claude Van Damme has finally spoken about Steven Seagal, and what he revealed sent shockwaves through Hollywood and martial arts circles alike. This isn't just another celebrity feud. It's a story of pride, credibility, and something that happened behind closed doors that no one expected. The truth is out, but what does it really mean? And what comes next? The Cold War of action icons. In the golden era of action cinema, when VHS shelves were packed with muscle-bound heroes and martial arts reigned supreme, two names stood at the top: Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. Their rise was meteoric, and their styles couldn't have been more different. Van Damme brought explosive energy, dazzling kicks, and a sense of vulnerability to his roles. His background in competitive fighting and his commanding physicality translated into fast-paced, crowd-pleasing choreography. Seagal, meanwhile, introduced something colder and more methodical. His Aikido-based style was slower but lethal, built around redirection and control. His presence on screen was intense, calm, and often impenetrable, like a man who knew more than he let on. What made their coexistence so fascinating wasn't just their cinematic contrast, but the philosophical divide they seemed to embody. Van Damme was all grit and passion, a fighter shaped by the ring. Seagal was enigmatic, a figure who moved like a ghost and rarely broke a sweat. Their approaches offered fans two distinct visions of martial arts, one born from competitive pressure and physical display, the other from controlled power and internal mastery. As their filmographies grew, so did the speculation. Audiences began to wonder not just who had the better movies, but who was the more real martial artist behind the camera. Despite being contemporaries in martial arts filmmaking, Van Damme and Seagal deliberately avoided one another. Rumor had it that the rivalry was too hostile to allow for even a moment's involvement working together in front of the cameras. Directors and producers kept them far away from each other, those in the know say. The crews who had worked with both actors had their story of tension that was best avoided and navigated. Each of the actors claimed dominance in one way or another, through silence from Van Damme or obvious physicality and presence from Seagal. And both were equally determined, with clear enthusiasm, to be considered an equal. This icy coolness behind the scenes divided what should have been a single family-like action world. By the late 1990s, their ways started to carve out what the insiders referred to as a Cold War. Hardly anything could be called a public feud or tabloid showdown, but the purported rivalry was tangible. Just as before, each actor's feature film would be released first in advance of the other, an edge that brought even greater competition, as though exchanging punches across some cosmic arena. Fans dissected one another on the internet, martial arts magazines posed questions on hypothetical matchups, and eventually, even Hollywood old-timers weighed in on the latent clash. The silent war was no longer about kicks and throws. It had morphed into an uneasy contest of two philosophies of power, presence, and pride. And that silence was about to crack. But what happens when subtle digs turn personal, and one icon finally decides to respond? Seagal's subtle jabs at Van Damme's legacy. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Steven Seagal cultivated an image of cool detachment and calm dominance, not only on screen, but also in the way he spoke about his peers. While he never launched a direct headline-making attack against Jean-Claude Van Damme, his remarks often carried a biting undercurrent. Seagal frequently referred to Van Damme in indirect, dismissive terms, most notably calling him a dancer, a reference to Van Damme's early ballet training. The implication was clear. In Seagal's eyes, Van Damme's martial arts were theatrical rather than legitimate. To many in the industry, these jabs weren't just careless, they were calculated. This tactic of belittling Van Damme's background became a pattern. Seagal's tone in interviews leaned into quiet superiority, brushing off the accomplishments of other martial artists while carefully upholding his own mystique. Van Damme, despite having a documented background in full-contact kickboxing and years of rigorous training, became one of Seagal's most frequent targets. The irony wasn't lost on those in the martial arts world. Van Damme had fought in real tournaments, while Seagal had largely stayed within the realm of demonstrations and philosophy-driven Aikido practice. This disparity added fuel to the fire, especially as Seagal continued casting doubt on Van Damme's legitimacy without ever offering proof of his own combat-tested experience. The industry was talking. From various accounts from coordinators, producers, and insiders cited in such media outlets as MovieWeb, Seagal's behind-the-scenes antics often matched his persona on camera: cold, condescending, and quick to belittle others. Van Damme was said to be a recurrent subject of such behind-the-scenes disparagements, which supposedly derived from Seagal's insecurity rather than any real martial disagreement. Those who had worked with both stars claimed it was a red flag that Seagal would not admit to Van Damme's legitimate fighting history. From that point on, it became apparent inside the professional community that this rivalry was nothing but a personal grudge, masquerading as public indifference. Still, for the next few years, Van Damme never acted in kind. He let his success and his extraordinary talent speak for him. Proud in successful films such as Universal Soldier and Time Cop, he won his due respect from fans impressed by the peculiar mix of intensity and heart in him. But when Van Damme finally spoke out in an interview in 2023, his response was very brief, straightforward, and devastating. He is a fraud. That one line flipped the tables against Seagal, with the very public accusation that Seagal's career was forged on tales and not evidence. And with that, for the first time, the fans and industry people started to rethink who among the two truly walked the walk. It was more than just a counterpunch. It was a reckoning. The Stallone party confrontation. One of the most iconic turning points in the Van Damme-Seagal feud took place not on a film set or in a tournament ring, but at a Hollywood party, one that has since become the stuff of legend. In the late 1990s, Sylvester Stallone hosted a high-profile gathering at his mansion, bringing together the biggest names in action cinema. The guest list read like a who's who of muscle-bound stars: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and other titans of the era. But among the celebrity sparkle, there was a charged undercurrent. Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal were both in attendance, sharing the same space for one of the only known times in their careers. The atmosphere at first was festive, even civil, but the peace didn't last long. As Stallone later confirmed in interviews, Seagal once again let his opinion be known, mocking Van Damme's martial arts credentials in familiar fashion. He reportedly made comments questioning Van Damme's legitimacy, calling him overrated, and downplaying his abilities. What Seagal may not have expected was that Van Damme, who had remained diplomatically silent for years, was standing within earshot, and this time he was done staying quiet. And according to Stallone himself and eyewitnesses present at the scene, Van Damme went directly to Seagal with a challenge for him. No cameras, no pretense, but just man to man. "Step outside, bring it as real martial artists do," he said. At first, Seagal tried to laugh it off, but Van Damme pushed him, only this time even more aggressively. Seagal refused and just left the party as a whole. That would have ended the matter, but it did not. Van Damme stalked Seagal out to a local nightclub that night to give the man another opportunity to step into a ring with him. In front of the shocked bystanders, he challenged him again, and once again, Seagal refused. The confrontation did not end in a fight, but it would turn out to be a defining moment in their long-standing rivalry, exposing a rift that had long been brewing. Stallone, looking back at the incident many years later, would call it one of the most intense things he had ever witnessed at a Hollywood party. His blunt take: Van Damme was too strong. Seagal wanted no part of him. Van Damme, for his part, made it clear this was not about hubris or spectacle. In his words, this was personal honor. Someone had challenged his discipline and authenticity, and that, in his world, called for action. He didn't need to have some public outburst or disingenuous press tour to prove his point. The moment would speak for itself. And it did, adding yet another undeniable dimension to the saga of their feud. A fight worth $20 million. In 2023, Jean-Claude Van Damme dropped a revelation that reignited one of the most enduring questions in action movie history. What would have happened if he and Steven Seagal had fought for real? In a candid interview with The Telegraph, Van Damme revealed that he had once been offered a staggering $20 million to face Seagal in a legitimate, unscripted martial arts match in Las Vegas. This wasn't a promotional stunt or a fictional movie plot. It was a serious proposal backed by producer Peter Guber, one of the industry's most respected deal-makers. The venue? The Mirage Casino. The stakes? 2 action legends, 1 ring, and 0 choreography. According to Van Damme, he agreed to the offer without hesitation. The money was real, the arena was booked, and all that was left was Seagal's signature. But the fight never happened because Seagal declined. There was no public comment, no negotiation, no press statement. He simply didn't show up. For fans who had long debated which star would come out on top in a real-world showdown, the news hit hard. This wasn't just a lost opportunity for entertainment. It was a definitive moment that reframed the narrative of their decades-long rivalry. The answer from martial arts circles and movie fans alike came back explosive. Forums across the internet lit up, YouTube channels deconstructed the plot, and social media buzzed with theories. What did he pull back for? Fear? Some found it hard to believe the accusation went so far as brilliance because he just wanted to protect an evanescent mystique. Seagal had never competed in or even sparred in any full-contact environment. Whereas Jean-Claude Van Damme campaigned across sanctioned tournaments and competed in full-contact sparring for many years, Seagal's career flourished on controlled demonstrations and highly stylized fight scenes. So accepting a challenge in a real fight was indeed a risky endeavor for Seagal, since any such confrontation would have laid bare the disparities between his dramatic interpretation of a fighter and the stark realities of life. He never showed his face when it all went down. He stayed completely quiet on the issue and never once acknowledged the offer or Van Damme's remark. Meanwhile, Van Damme made no extra rounds about the incident. No trash talking, no seeking media frenzy. Everybody could feel the calm and almost tired wail down the line. Yet the impact, indeed, was felt. The resigned fight became not just the fight that might have been, but the embodiment of everything the feud stood for: real versus fake, confrontation versus aversion, fact versus fiction. Still today, fans speculate on what Seagal's words might have caused for this imbrication of interests. But in a way, the hush surrounding that $20 million match has probably spoken louder than any fight possibly could. The suspicious Instagram reunion. In April 2024, the long-standing silence between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal took an unexpected turn, at least on the surface. A single Instagram post by Van Damme showed the 2 action icons sitting together at a dinner table, raising glasses in what looked like a casual birthday celebration. The caption was equally surprising. "Thank you, Steven and your family, for the fantastic dinner. Wishing you a happy birthday. Big announcement coming soon." Within hours, the image went viral. After decades of distance, tension, and near confrontations, fans were stunned. Had the feud finally ended? Or was something else going on? To the casual observer, The post suggested reconciliation. But those familiar with the history between the two knew better than to take it at face value. The context alone was strange. Seagal's birthday, a private occasion, suddenly made public by Van Damme. The image itself raised eyebrows. No video, no candid moments, no natural expressions. Just a carefully composed still with ambiguous smiles. Seagal's expression was especially notable, blank, almost wary, while Van Damme's smile looked more polite than sincere. The caption hinted at something significant to come, but gave no real clues. There was no follow-up statement, no clarification, and no real indication of what the so-called big announcement was supposed to be. The media, ranging from the Daily Mail to MovieWeb, immediately picked up the story with headlines speculating on the vague prospect of a film coming into being, perhaps even a documentary or a joint martial arts event. Some fans celebrated the seeming truce, excited that they may finally see these two men on the screen together. Others expressed skepticism. Van Damme had only recently called Seagal a fraud, accused him of avoiding a $20 million fight, and revealed disrespect behind the scenes for years. What was with the birthday toast? What was with the vague promise of the big reveal? It had the aura of orchestration. Combined with the muted and polished execution, it only added more fuel to the already growing fire of suspicion. In an eventual interview, Van Damme brought the light to the mystery, and that is where the truth came out. Apparently, that dinner had not been an olive branch. Rather, it had been a test. Van Damme had gone there, rather curiously, to see whether Seagal had changed. Yet he left feeling assured nothing had. It wasn't friendship, he said. It was observation. The mystique was gone, and Van Damme saw the same bravado and guardedness he'd witnessed time and time again through the years. Far from being a harbinger of peace, the Instagram post was a stealth trap, a precursor to the revelation that was about to follow. What would seem like a reconciliation was, in the rearview mirror, a calm before the storm. The storm was about to come. Just when fans thought peace was possible, Van Damme pulled back the curtain. Van Damme ends the illusion. After decades of carefully dodged questions and quiet restraint, Jean-Claude Van Damme finally broke his silence in a calm but cutting interview that left little room for misinterpretation. Without raising his voice or indulging in drama, he uttered 5 words that echoed across the martial arts world. He is a fraud. It was a statement that had been brewing beneath the surface for years, and when it came, it landed with the weight of a final verdict. Van Damme didn't speak with anger or bitterness. His tone was steady, even weary, like someone who had carried the burden of silence for far too long and had finally decided it was time to set the record straight. Van Damme's accusations weren't vague. He directly challenged Steven Seagal's martial arts credibility, pointing out that while Seagal had spent decades crafting stories of training CIA operatives, disarming real-life attackers, and performing feats of near-superhuman combat prowess, he had never once stepped into a legitimate martial arts tournament. Not once. This, Van Damme emphasized, was the key difference between them. He himself had put in the work, taken the hits, and proven his skill in the ring under real pressure. His career was not built on fiction. It was built on discipline, sacrifice, and tested experience. Context renders it a bigger blow. The scenes have all been set with Van Damme already confronting Seagal in person at Stallone's party in the 90s. He agreed to a fight for real $20 million, and Seagal did not show his face in Las Vegas. More recently, he posted what many believed to be a peace offering on Instagram, only to then reveal it was a strategic encounter that was meant to confirm what he already suspected. Seagal hadn't changed. The birthday dinner is not reconciliation, it is an observation before the truth. In calling Seagal a fraud, Van Damme wasn't clawing. He was clearly drawing that line of what is fantasy and what is real, what is storytelling and what is truth. Expectedly, Seagal did not respond. No denial, no clarification, not even a vague social media post. But that didn't matter to Van Damme, since a rebuttal was not the main point he was making. In fact, he ruled out decades of speculation pump fanciful theories, and simply manufactured mystique with just this one sentence. Martial artists, as well as longtime fans, were forced to reassess what they thought they knew. Van Damme did not expose Seagal with fanfare or fury. He did it with honesty. And to do just that, he brought down a legend that had stood without question for years. That moment's season finale was where the feud now graduated to that high stakes of irreversible reckoning, not with might, fists, or dagger plow through enemy lines. The core philosophical divide. At the heart of the Van Damme-Seagal feud lies a stark contrast in their martial arts philosophies, one rooted in real-world experience, the other in cinematic mystique. Jean-Claude Van Damme built his career on a foundation of verified skill. Before gracing the big screen, he was a legitimate competitor in full-contact kickboxing and point-fighting tournaments. His physical feats were earned through repetition, discipline, and years of structured training. Whether portraying Frank Dux in Bloodsport or Luke Devereaux in Universal Soldier, Van Damme consistently brought authenticity to his roles by drawing on his lived experience in the ring. Steven Seagal's approach was entirely different. While he did train in Aikido and taught in Japan, his rise to fame centered less on proof and more on persona. His early characters were enigmatic ex-CIA operatives and shadowy loners with a deadly calm, figures who reflected the stories he told off-screen. These narratives often included vague references to secret missions, spiritual insights, and real-life combat encounters that were never corroborated. Seagal's myth-making wasn't accidental. It was central to his appeal. Unlike Van Damme, he didn't emphasize competition or credentials. He sold a legend, not a resume. Long-term, it created a philosophical difference in how each man was seen. Van Damme's transparency made him more vulnerable, but definitely added to his respect in martial arts circles. He never shunned his ballet background, nor did he shy away from his fighting history. It felt like a career redeemed with highs and lows in honest admissions. These were not, however, the qualities of the increasingly secretive and evasive Seagal. Generally, the eyebrows were raised over the years with his refusal even to try to defend his honor in public challenges. Some of his fans took it as his mystique, while others considered it a smokescreen, especially in comparison with Van Damme's open-book approach. When Van Damme called Seagal a phony, it was more than just personal. It was philosophical. It was a critique of a mindset that glorified image over effort and legend over legitimacy. To Van Damme, martial arts is about proving oneself in reality rather than just on camera. This very divide between true ability and fabricated identity holds as one of the most characteristic features of their rivalry. Hollywood's open secret. Long before fans began openly debating who would win in a real fight, Hollywood insiders already knew that Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal were a combustible mix. Their feud wasn't just whispered about, it was actively managed. Producers, casting directors, and event planners were warned. Never put Van Damme and Seagal in the same room. Their rivalry had created a quiet but rigid boundary in the industry. Behind the glitz and glamour of red carpets and movie premieres was an unspoken rule: choose one, but never both. The tension between them wasn't just personal. It was structural, woven into how the action genre operated behind the scenes. Part of the industry's caution came from Seagal's off-screen behavior. Multiple sources, including stuntmen and coordinators, described how Seagal often downplayed the talents of fellow martial artists, with Van Damme being a frequent target. He never directly attacked him in public, but he often referred to him as a dancer, diminishing his kickboxing and tournament record in favor of that one early ballet chapter. These comments, often made behind closed doors, spread quickly through production circles. They weren't playful jabs. They carried a condescending tone that revealed deeper professional jealousy. Van Damme, who had spent years proving himself in full-contact arenas, quietly absorbed the disrespect. Along came even more complications with the addition of industry legends like Sylvester Stallone, who would later confirm that the rivalry had heated up back at one of his private 90s parties, where Van Damme challenged Seagal in public. Once, twice. The moment Seagal backed down and left, witnesses knew for sure that the animosity was not just pap. This was personal, ongoing, and strong enough to make other A-listers walk carefully. From now on, the divide was not just in their personal relationship, but in being able to work together. Studios wouldn't even think about it in terms of ever putting either of them in the same picture. Safer to think of any possible consequences of what might happen off-camera. Slowly, this operational divide determined the making of action films in the 1990s and early 2000s. Supposedly, studio heads had already inquired with agents whether the other star would be attached before proceeding with the deal. Some production crews would go so far as to be divided along the lines of allegiance, preferring to bear the brunt of a particular film's misery working with one actor or the other. It was not that the line was written in law, rather, it was enforced by reputations. Behind the black belt. Steven Seagal's rise in the late 1980s was as much a lesson in image crafting as it was a showcase of martial arts. From his debut in Above the Law, Seagal wasn't just cast as a fighter, he was framed as something more enigmatic, a shadowy operative, a man with lethal precision and classified knowledge. The persona was deliberate and consistent. His characters were often tied to covert agencies, portrayed as lone wolves with military or intelligence backgrounds. What began as fiction quickly bled into real life, as Seagal himself started echoing those same stories in interviews, claiming to have trained elite soldiers or thwarted real-world threats. The line between character and man blurred, and many fans didn't question it. Part of what made Seagal's mythos so compelling was the lack of pushback. In a pre-internet era, before social media fact-checkers and viral exposés, Seagal's outlandish claims went largely unchallenged. The media, hungry for headlines, gave him a platform, amplifying his stories without verifying them. Tales of breaking arms in dojos, subduing multiple attackers in real-life scenarios, and having CIA-level clearance only enhanced his legend. His calm, serious demeanor gave weight to these accounts, and audiences bought into it. Unlike Van Damme, who was expressive and theatrical both on and off-screen, Seagal leaned into mystery, quiet, unreadable, and supposedly dangerous. The mystique surrounding him positioned Seagal as the real deal in a business filled with showmen, while Van Damme was dazzling audiences with splits and spinning kicks moves, which, despite being show-offs in the movies, were backed by real tournament credentials. Seagal, on the other hand, projected a grounded, no-nonsense form of combat that felt dangerously simple. But this image, too, of a man who walked his talk, started to tarnish with the hammer of time. His fight sequences slowed down, his performance dwindled into irrelevance, and his claims appeared less believable than they were. Somehow, the persona survived until the day someone of real standing thought he should have his say. 2023 was the time when Jean-Claude Van Damme passed a judgment that shattered Seagal's carefully crafted image in an instant. He is a fraud. Van Damme not only challenged Seagal, his claim, he put into question everything the fans ever thought they knew. The once content martial arts community started looking closely. Archived interviews went back into circulation. Footage of demonstrations was re-scrutinized. And for the first time, Seagal's silence about it, once thought of as a stoic mystique, began to look more and more like an avoidance. With the mystique unraveled, it was time to confront the cost of believing in it. Legacy on the line. When Jean-Claude Van Damme finally broke his silence about Steven Seagal in 2023, it wasn't delivered with bombast or theatrics. It was calm, calculated, and unequivocal. His statement, "He is a fraud," resonated far beyond the boundaries of tabloid drama. For years, Seagal had existed within a carefully maintained bubble of mystique, built on tales of covert operations and mystical martial mastery. Van Damme's words pierced that illusion with surgical precision. This wasn't just one star attacking another. It was a public indictment of a decades-long mythology that had gone mostly unchallenged in Hollywood. The reaction wasn't limited to entertainment news. Martial artists, fight historians, and longtime fans began poring over old interviews and comparing receipts. Van Damme's tournament record and competitive accolades were suddenly back in focus, standing in stark contrast to Seagal's lack of verifiable fight experience. While Seagal's films had undeniably contributed to the rise of Aikido in pop culture, the credibility of his personal martial arts narrative began to unravel. People weren't just questioning his skills, they were interrogating the foundation of his reputation. As Van Damme's words spread, the conversation shifted from admiration to skepticism. Unlike any other thing, this period changed what people normally expect from martial arts icons. Van Damme raised the issue of integrity, not celebrity or box office status. He didn't just claim he was better, but proved to be for and in front of everyone to see. By his definition, truth was theater's opposite, and artifice was born of accountability. The best part was when he mentioned Seagal's refusal to enter a real ring for a fight. Someone was offering him $20 million to do so in Las Vegas. This summarized a point. Martial art is a discipline earned in the arena, not in anecdote. For Van Damme, authenticity was not yet another branding, but the craft. As soon as he threw a light into the disparity between the ideals and reality of Seagal, he brought about the rethinking of what martial excellence really means. At the end, Van Damme's statement meant a shift in culture. Seagal's once magnified halo fell apart under scrutiny and turned out to hold more reputation than reality. While one might argue that Seagal remained tight-lipped, his silence spoke much more now than in olden days. The feud, which started between two actors, has certainly transcended that to a bigger topic concerning the truth inside a world of lies. Van Damme did not have to punch, he just needed to talk truthfully for Seagal's legacy to be shaken. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts on the Van Damme-Seagal rivalry, and subscribe for more untold stories from the world of action cinema. Want more behind-the-scenes drama and martial arts legends? Click the next video on your screen now. You won't want to miss it.